got another sup, or are you done on that?
Well, I mean, I did want to hear about what actual work is in place to actually measure this stuff, and I didn't hear anything on that.
Okay, so I'll take that as a comment.
Just to add to it, so we, as at MB, we will have a program of looking at the data and the evidence over time. One of the difficulties in this area, which has already been alluded to, is that in some parts of the portfolio, there's very strong administrative data, like in WorkSafe and the Labour Inspectorate. On the general labour market, there isn't, because we don't automatically collect data on people's paying conditions as a matter of course. So some of those areas are much harder to evidence and evaluate over time. And we will periodically do an economic impact analysis of something where they try and look at some of the...
Now let's test Laura's volume.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, my goddamn Microsoft drivers and everything. They just can't handle Brooke. She's breaking my PC.
I know. I had to have fun with mine today trying to download an update. I found out in order to have Windows 10 on the computer, I have to trade in my 128 gig solid state hard drive on that computer to replace it with a 256.
Okay. So what's the moral of the story? Australia has better computers than New Zealand, and people are leaving the country because they're not getting paid.
Yep. Okay, let's continue on there, because we actually sound like we have someone who knows their shit talking at the moment, better than Brooke.
The more macro indicators, but it is harder to measure. But that is something that is on to MB to be thinking about. What's our program of evidence and evaluation over time?
Thank you. Jantonetti.
So just on that and following on from that, and it's for you, Minister, I have a list of 15 areas that have majorly impacted on workers since you've come in and have had a negative impact on workers. And then there are currently, I've got, I think, 5 that are currently in process at the moment that you are working, as Tiano said, balls in the air. Is there anything that happened in those first 15 that is influencing the work that you're doing in that 5? What's the evidence that you are gathering to help you with your decision making in those 5 things that you've got in the air at the moment?
Well, Jan, I'm not a mind reader. I have no idea what.
So health and safety, for example, you have, let's see, well, no, you've scrapped fair pay agreements, reinstated 90-day trials, effective cut to minimum wage against official advice. Any of those that have informed you in your current work now? And the results of those cuts, anything that you've used to inform what you're doing now?
They're all very different areas of work that touch on different parts of employment law. For example, the 90-day trials, one area, if you're looking at how it specifically affects the work that I'm doing now, one area would be the 90-day trials policy was brought in under this government as an Act National Coalition item to allow all businesses and all workers access to 90-day trials. It was earlier this year, I believe, where I was alerted to the fact that the 90-day trial system was not working as I had intended under the Act National Coalition, which is why under the Employment Relations Amendment Bill, there is a specific change to the 30-day rule, because I was made aware that 90-day trials were not going to have an effect in all organisations, because if you have a business owner who has a collective agreement in place, all other new employees in that organisation must have the collective agreement for the first 30 days before they can have an individual employment agreement. In many cases, that precludes the ability of the employer to offer a 90-day trial, which is why I am still going for the 90-day trial regime that you've talked about in those first ones, and putting it into the Employment Relations Amendment Bill as an extension of the 90-day trial policy. So to actually answer your question really specifically, that is one area that I'm still working on in relation to those earlier areas.
Okay, I'm going to take a primary from Mike and then a primary from Jantonetti. Cool.
Now, I just want to make this point here. What happens under that 30-day rule if an employee chooses to take the collective agreement? Or what happens if the employer who has their employees under a collective agreement refuses to let their employees go on that collective agreement to enforce a 90-day trial?
Oh, I assumed you have the answer to that question.
Well, I don't actually. But these are the scenarios that Brooke needs to actually take into account. Is the fact that, under that 90-day rule, under that 30-day rule, you might have people who want to opt into the collective agreement, particularly if it's, say, like nursing, which typically is a very in the public sector is very highly unionised. Teaching is, most public school teachers are unionised. I can tell you right now in Wellington, we have a very high bus driver unionship rate. Now, that is different to the regions, but in Wellington, we have a very high unionship rate. If you sit there and talk about Transdev, where Ray works, everyone's in the Rail Maritime Union. It's like, is that rule going to, say, sidestep someone from having a collective agreement, or say, oh, you're not allowed a collective employee agreement until you've sat there and passed your 90-day trial? That's the can of worms you're going to sit there and open.
Yep. Oh, well, we know how much she hates unions, so of course she's going to do dumb shit to try and get rid of unions. I mean, knowing her, she probably sit there and try to outlaw them. Yeah.
Well, she hasn't quite got to that point, but I was going to say, if ACT got more votes in Parliament, I wouldn't be surprised if they sat there and do it, considering in the United States and Florida, there have been attempts to try and disband unions amongst the teaching profession.
Yep.
I am booked out.
Yep.
So, shall we take a very quick break?
Yep.
So that we can at least have get to the toilet and all that sort of stuff. And then we'll continue on with Nicola Willis.
Yep, sounds good.
And I think you'll be trading in one with the other.
Oh, geez, okay. Yep, okay.
Yep, so let's roll on and have a break.
Yep.